The aftermath of a Russian missile attack in Mykolaiv. It's believed 200 soldiers were inside at the time the base was struck. Rescuers race to find survivors in the rubble, but are forced to seek safety when an air raid siren rings out. The constant threat of bombardment has forced people here underground. To the east, Russians are pushing deeper into the besieged city of Mariupol. Ukraine says 90% of the city has been damaged or destroyed by Russian bombardment. It's thought over 1,000 people were sheltering inside this theater when it was destroyed by a Russian strike. Hundreds are still missing.
A city under siege as Russian forces intensify their attacks. What's left of neighborhoods in Mariupol are shattered homes and buildings. Across the port city, scattered bodies lay out on the street, scenes of the worst war can do. Cars now line the streets as people try to flee. Checkpoints make sure only civilians leave. Russian forces charged into the port city, a place where weeks of shelling had kept about 400,000 people hostage. Local authorities say Moscow's attacks have cut electricity supplies, heating, and water. Russia denies it's targeting civilians.
A toy version of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, made by a small suburban Chicago toy company, has made a big impact to the tune of $145,000. Based in Naperville, Illinois, Citizen Brick started making unofficial Lego figurines of Zelensky to raise money for the Ukrainian people after the Russian invasion started last month.
We make a lot of these parts by hand.
Owner Joe Trupia says what started out as a simple fundraising idea quickly ballooned into something much bigger.
Having sold out the first batch of them kind of immediately, but to people we knew, kind of our regular customers, we kind of thought we were done with it. And then all of a sudden started getting pings on the phone, and we saw that it was being reproduced on the Ukrainian Instagram page, which was kind of a shock. And suddenly we were getting a lot of followers from Instagram, from the Ukraine, and people messaging us, and it was just kind of overwhelming.
The Zelensky figurines sold for $100 each, while a Molotov cocktail figurine decorated with the Ukrainian flag went for $20.
A new batch of asylum seekers are popping up at the U.S. Mexico border. Russians who are against the war in Ukraine. While U.S. officials have let dozens of Ukrainians through this week, Russians remain in limbo, prompting some to camp out on the pavement alongside a barbed wire border fence, defying warnings from Mexican authorities to leave. One woman told Reuters she had fled Russia with her children after being arrested at an anti-war protest there, and said she burst into tears when she was rebuffed at the U.S. border as Ukrainians were let in. The devastation in Ukraine has caused 3 million Ukrainians to become refugees, according to the United Nations, most of them in bordering countries. Some Ukrainians crossing in Tijuana have been granted permission to stay in the United States for a year. But thousands of Russians have also left their country, according to media reports.
Three Russian cosmonauts arrived safely at the International Space Station on Friday and were warmly welcomed by 4 Americans, 2 Russians, and a German crewmate already aboard. But it was the color of the Russian crew's uniforms that caught the eye of Western observers. Were the brightly colored yellow and blue outfits a supportive nod to the Ukrainian flag? Russia's space agency Roscosmos on Saturday said no. On its Telegram channel, its press service said bluntly, "Sometimes yellow is just yellow." Director General Dmitry Rogozin was more acerbic on his personal Telegram channel, saying that Russian cosmonauts had no sympathy for Ukrainian nationalists. In a live-streamed news conference from the ISS on Friday, Mission Commander Oleg Artemyev was asked about the suits.
Every crew picks the suits. the overalls, on their own accord, so that they don't all look the same, but different. Now, it was our turn to pick the colour. The truth is, we had accumulated a lot of yellow material, so we needed to use it up. That's why we had to wear yellow flight suits.
Tonight, the desperate search for answers why a Marine Osprey aircraft like this one went down in Norway on Friday, crashing in a mountainous area, killing all 4 Marines on board. The Osprey was on its way north in a training mission where it was due to land shortly before 6 p.m., but it never made it. After it was reported missing at 6:26 p.m., Norwegian search and rescue teams taking the lead, locating the wreckage from the air. The area is part of the Arctic, known for its extreme weather conditions.
This area of Norway is very rugged, steep, high mountains, and the snow is deep, high winds, and weather that changes very, very rapidly.
The flight was part of a regular NATO exercise called Cold Response, scheduled long before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, involving 30,000 troops from 27 countries, including 3,000 U.S. Marines.
Stretching across the strait and into history, over a waterway steeped in significance, the 1915 Çanakkale Bridge. Opened by the Turkish president in the Dardanelles with fighter jets soaring overhead. The longest suspension bridge in the world links Turkey's west and east from Gallipoli to Lepsiki, spanning just over 2 kilometres. Its towers stand 318 metres above the water, that height rich in symbolism, referencing March 1915, one of Turkey's greatest World War I victories, the Ottomans defeating a naval attack by Allied forces. This led to the ill-fated landing at Gallipoli a few weeks later, where thousands of Australian and New Zealand soldiers lost their lives. An Australian crane company helped build the towers, working alongside Turks on what it calls a peace project for the region.
An estimated 6,000 people have taken refuge in the Gambia after fleeing the violence between the army and the rebels in the south of neighboring Senegal. The Gambian authority confirmed Saturday the Senegalese army announced that it had launched an operation on March 13 against rebels in Casamance, a region separated from the northern Senegal by the Gambia. The army had indicated that their main objective is to dismantle the base of rebel military leader Salif Sadio. The number of people fleeing the violence since March 13 now stands at 6,350, including 4,500 displaced people. Majority of these refugees are now fleeing to Foni Kansala in the Gambia, an area that has become a safe haven for both refugees and IDPs.